I was having a discussion with David during a carpool the other day. We were trying to figure out whether or not how the next wave of consoles is they're more like PCs. Would
Yeah.
that make PC components cheaper or more expensive? I argued more expensive, but he thought maybe it would push the prices down because it would commoditize everything.
I don't think there's really a ton of room for the prices to go down a bunch.
Right.
Well, okay.
Competition's already high enough. It's already a race to the bottom. So just the fact that these components will be used up by the console market will just make them more scarce.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to affect that either. So okay, so there's a few factors here. So one is there is the components of a PC that cannot get cheaper. Things like hard drives, they're not going to get cheaper. You know, you can these are all gigantic companies. You know, whether it's Seagate or Western Digital that we're talking about, these are huge companies. They're publicly traded companies. We can look at their balance sheets. We can see what their profit margins are. Hard drives, not getting cheaper. There's just a basic fixed cost associated with these rare earth materials that need to be integrated into a hard drive to make a functioning hard drive, no matter what the capacity is. You need a motor. Okay, you got to put a motor in there. You got to fill it with helium now. You know, especially for the high cap stuff. So there's enough competition that I just don't think it's going anywhere. And hard drives are under siege, not just from alternate hard drive vendors, of which there are few enough now that it would be pretty easy for them to just kind of go, okay, let's just switch up the business. We're going to go cartel style and we're going to price fix and make sure that we can make some margin. But they're also under siege from solid state drive makers who continue to push prices lower and lower and lower. So yeah, hard drives, not happening. Solid state drives, for that matter, it's not getting cheaper. It's already pretty much a commodity item at this point. However, there are areas where there is room for things to get cheaper. I mean, for an unrelated video, I was actually looking at Intel's gross margins earlier this week, and they're somewhere in the neighborhood of like 60+%. So if you look at it and go, okay, could an Intel Core i5, you know, whatever $250 or so processor all of a sudden be available for $200? Yeah, that's conceivable. I doubt that they would go that aggressive, especially because just because Intel's margins overall are 60+% doesn't mean that they're actually making 60+% on that product. That's, in the grand scheme of Intel's product stack, that's a low end product, and that's not where they're making the margin.
Is that margin unique to Intel in the industry, or
No.
is that what you expect to see? Yeah, because in that industry, they have such heavy upfront capital expenditures for building these fabs and for researching the next generation of technology that they're going to launch subsequently, like way down the road. So I think it's a little misleading.
Where there is room for your PC to get a little bit cheaper, I would say, is in your GPU. NVIDIA also enjoys these healthy, 60+% gross margins, except that all NVIDIA does, by comparison to at least, I mean, I'm not saying NVIDIA doesn't invest in R&D, they absolutely do, but they don't build fabs. So NVIDIA gets to take advantage of TSMC's fab building process, and they just have to design the chip and make it work on TSMC's node. So I think NVIDIA could probably, drop their price if they felt like the next gen consoles were, taking a chunk out of their business. And they could, because they're all going to be powered by AMD. There's going to be no NVIDIA GPUs. And actually, okay, I don't know. It's possible that like a Nintendo successor could be NVIDIA powered. The current one is. I forgot about that.
Is anyone talking about that?
Yeah, people have talked about it. Yeah, how both Microsoft and Sony are AMD camps, and then Nintendo sort of randomly went NVIDIA this time around just because they wanted that. Well, basically, I mean, the Switch just is an NVIDIA Shield tablet. Like if you, I mean, obviously a better one, a heavily modified one, an improved one, but it basically takes that concept of a tablet that you can game with on the go and then dock when you want to game on your TV, and is like, yoink, that's mine now. I'm going to steal this meme, So yeah, there is room for your PC to get cheaper, but I don't expect the upcoming consoles to really put much in the way of pressure on that. They're going to occupy the low end of the market, anywhere from $400 to $500, where generally speaking, manufacturers are already taking as little profit as they can in order to just do the volume of business that they need to do. I mean, that's something a lot of consumers don't really understand, is that manufacturers, in order to even meet the production quotas that they've had to commit to in order to build their high-end profitable products, will sometimes have to pump out low-end products that they don't make any money on, or that they even lose money on, so that they don't lose their contracts, for example, or so that they don't have to lay off the staff that they need to make those juicy products, or to justify the lease that they have on this giant building, or whatever the case may be. There is an incentive for manufacturers to keep up their volumes. I mean, there's other factors that are just financial too. Sometimes companies, for whatever reason, I've never really subscribed to this, and I remember getting in arguments at my old job. For some reason, companies feel the need to measure based on how high their top line revenue is. And that seems to determine the valuation of this company to lenders, for example. Like, oh, we're $1 billion company. It's like, oh, well, what was your net profit? I don't know. Who cares? We're $1 billion company, right? Well, no, hold on. To me, net profit was always far more important than what kind of top line revenue we're doing. But that is a factor in some corporate cultures. I remember at my old job, we would get pushed. The product management team would get pushed to hit these crazy, revenue goals. Like, oh, everyone's going to get a bonus if we do $1 million revenue in one day. And we'd look at that and we'd go, well, yeah, I can do $1 million revenue in one day. All I need to do is sell extreme editions for $500 and we'll get there just lickety split, right? We'll lose a bunch of money. No one's going to get paid, but we can do $1 million revenue in one day if that makes you feel like you're bigger, right? So,
well, I think there's also pressure, especially when you're a publicly traded company, to keep that stock price high, because that's
absolutely
how you secure additional financing. And everyone who's giving you funds, they're doing it in exchange for shares, so they want those shares to be worth a lot. So
exactly,
more important.
It's yet another way that modern businesses seem to get incentivized to do the wrong things in the name of making the business better. And that can harm them in the long term. I was reading a really interesting article about Rolex, of all things. I'm not a watch guy. I'm not into watches, but it was an article that was about how Rolex continues to innovate. And again, as not a watch guy, I kind of look at a watch and I go, sorry, innovate what? It either knows what time it is or it doesn't. And I thought we pretty much nailed that down a couple hundred years ago. So what exactly is the remaining innovation? And so it, talked about, what that innovation might actually mean, which was very helpful background information for somebody like me reading the article. But it talked about how the way that Rolex was originally structured, their corporate structure was designed so that it could basically continue perpetually without ever being beholden to any kind of shareholders. And so all their revenue numbers, sales figures, design, nobody knows anything about the internal workings of Rolex effectively. And that's allowed them, and they're not accountable to anyone. So by not having to do a quarterly earnings call or any of that goofy stuff, they can make big bets. They can do stuff that might be against the conventional wisdom and just do what they think is right. And I'm like, oh, that actually makes so much sense to me, because that's one of the big reasons that Linus Media Group has never solicited any kind of outside shareholders or anything like that, because as much as there might have been times that we could have used the money, and with our public profile, there's no doubt that we could raise a bunch of money if we wanted to. I just don't want to be accountable to anyone else. If I want to make a crazy decision, we're going to abandon tech videos and we're going to move into, all toys and games videos on Channel Super Fun. As long as I've got my team on board, my staff's like, okay, I guess you haven't really led us astray so far. Let's give it a shot. I want to be able to do that. And even though I could maintain, 51% ownership or something like that and make unilateral decisions, I always feel like even if, by law, I'm not accountable to my shareholders by sort of, I don't know what the word would be. Ethics, is that the word I'm looking for? Integrity? Like,
Mores.
I feel like I should care, and that should be a team decision if there's other people who have a vested stake in the company. So yeah, I forget how I got on this topic, but I thought that was cool, and I respect it pretty much.
Yeah, like if we need to raise money, we'll just issue a cryptocurrency or something, you know?
You know what's funny is we had thought about doing it. We had even like said on Wanchu, we were like, yeah, we're totally gonna do it. We're gonna do Linus Coin. But the further we got into the weeds on it, the more we realized that there's really no way to do it and make money without screwing over someone else. So we were like, oh, all right. Well, that explains why everyone's doing this. Yeah, neat. So yeah, I'm out.